Hello everyone, my name is Janie and today I'll be showing you how to make this heart mesh top. And before we get started, very important, go follow @guppy_crochet because she's very sweet and she was the original designer of this top. She was kind enough to let me write a pattern for it and that's why this video is possible. So without further ado, here are the materials you will need today. You'll need any 4-weight yarn, a 5mm crochet hook and scissors, and now we'll get started. So to start, we're going to chain 53, so make your slip knot and then chain 53. If you don't know how to chain, basically you're putting your hook into the loop and then you're yarning over and pulling through 53 times. Then after that, we're going to single crochet 52, so to start that, we're going to put our hook into the second chain and then single crochet in every single loop all the way down. I'm gonna do the rest of that off camera and I'll meet you guys at the end, but here's a couple of the single crochets just so you know what it looks like. So after we create that single crochet row, it's kind of like our base for the mesh rows that are coming up. So we're gonna start the actual front panel now by creating mesh rows. This may be new to some people, but basically you're going to start each mesh square row by chaining 5. After you chain 5, you're going to skip 2 and then double crochet into that next stitch from the base row. Here's what I mean by that skip 2. Do you see the 2 stitches that my thumbs are on? We're going to skip over those and double crochet into the next stitch of the base row. So I know this part of the pattern was kind of confusing because it kind of looks like you're skipping 3, but I wrote skip 2 because I considered it a skip 2, but hopefully this video helps clear up the confusion. And then after you make your first square, you're going to chain 2, skip 2 from the base row, and then double crochet into the next stitch. So I'm skipping these 2 and double crocheting into that stitch that I have my thumb on. Now this is basically the process for the rest of this top until you get to the heart. You're basically going to chain 2, skip 2, and then double crochet into the following stitch. The reason the first square was made with the chain 5 is because we had to make a new row, so we needed those chains to create the side of the square. But for the rest of it, you're just going to chain 2, skip 2, double crochet. And just a note, for this first row, if you made any changes or modifications to the foundation row to adjust to your size, which I have in the back of a pattern, then you will have a different number of squares. But if you're following with exactly what I'm doing, I ended up with 17 squares across. And each row will have 17 squares. It's kind of like a grid system, which makes it easy to organize. And yeah, so you're just going to continue this process until you have those 17 squares. If you have any questions or you're having trouble with anything, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram because I'll probably respond fast. I'm always on my phone, to be honest. But yeah, continue this process and I will meet you when we were on our last little square for this first row. So now you should be on the last square of your first row. What we're going to do is chain 2 and then double crochet like we've been doing. Now we're going to start the next row. So we know that to start a row we have to chain 5 to create the first square, right? And then afterwards we're going to continue that chain 2, skip 2, double crochet all the way down. So we're going to repeat this process for a total of 6 rows and you can modify it depending on the length because after these 6 rows we're going to start working on the heart design. And you'll notice that since we already made that first row of mesh squares, this row is going to go by so much easier just because when you're placing that double crochet, you're just putting it into wherever you had the double crochet on the previous row. So you don't have to think as much. It makes this part a lot more mindless, and that's why it's the perfect time to put on a TV show, because this gets a little bit tedious. But yeah, I'll meet you guys when I'm done with all 6 of those rows. Now I actually did 5 rows for this one just because I wanted it to be a little bit more cropped, but whatever number you choose, it'll be the same kind of design. Just follow along with the pattern and you'll be good. This is what it should look like. Now for the next few rows is when we're actually going to start the heart design, which means that we're going to be filling in squares in the rows. So it's kind of the same process, just when we get to a square that is where the heart is going to be placed, we're going to double crochet into where we would normally skip 2. Let me show you what I mean. So on row 7, or whatever row you may be on, we're going to start the same way. So chain 5, skip 2, and then double crochet into the pillar, and then chain 2, skip 2, double crochet until we have a total of 8 squares. So that was my first one. This will be my second one. Keep going until you have 8 squares, and then once you get there, pause for a moment. Now that you've got 8 squares, you should be in the middle of your work, and we're going to fill in this one square to be the point of our heart. So to fill in, what you're going to do is, instead of skipping those 2 chains, you're going to double crochet into them. So each time you're filling in a square, you're going to double crochet 2 times in the middle of the square, and then finish your double crochet for the pillar part, if that makes sense. I will show you right now. So there I am with the second double crochet. Now you're going to double crochet one more time to fill in the rest of the square. Now for the rest of the row, you're going to mirror the other side and make 8 mesh squares by chaining 2, skipping 2, and then double crocheting all the way down. For the next row, which is row 8, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to make sure there are 3 filled in squares in the middle. So to start, you're going to chain 5, skip 2, double crochet, and then do your little chain 2, skip 2, double crochet until you have 7 squares in total. While you're doing that, I just wanted to note that it's very helpful to think of this like a grid. I drew out a grid on the pattern that will help you visualize what's going on, so I would definitely refer to that. Once you finish your 7 mesh squares, we're going to start filling in on that 8th square. You're going to do this by filling in with double crochets, and you're going to do it 9 consecutive times. So you're double crocheting into every one of those chains and the pillars. If you get a little lost, definitely refer to your previous rows to make sure you're all aligned. Remember that we're filling in 3 squares, which means that once you get to the end of filling in, it should align with some pillar from the previous row. Like, you shouldn't be ending on the half of a mesh square. So yeah, I'm just gonna speed through this a little bit, and after you're done filling in these 3 squares, you're going to make 7 more mesh squares by chaining 2, skipping, and double crocheting. Now you should be on row 9, and this time we're going to fill in 5 squares in the middle. So to start, you're going to make 6 mesh squares. So chain 5, skip, double crochet, chain 2, skip, double crochet, and make 6 squares. Now that you have those 6 mesh squares, you're going to fill in 5 squares in the middle, and to do that, remember that you're just double crocheting instead of skipping 2. So it's going to be a total of 15 double crochets, and once you're done with that, you're going to do another 6 mesh squares to finish the row. Now for row 10, it's going to be a little bit different just because we're going to be filling in half a square. But to start off, make 5 mesh squares, and when you get to the 6th one, I will show you what you need to do. So here we have those 5 squares. Now for the 6th one, we're going to be filling in half a square. So to do that, we're going to chain 1. And then after that, we're going to skip 1 chain from the previous row and then double crochet into the next chain. That way we're filling in half a square. Now for the rest of the row, for the rest of this like filled in area, we're going to double crochet 18 times. So that was our first double crochet. This will be our second. Do this 18 times, and just keep in mind that each time we're adding to the heart, it's being mirrored down the middle. So if it's not looking even, that's an indication that you might have like accidentally shifted the rows over a little bit. So I would look at your squares and just make sure everything's aligned, make sure it's in like a grid format. But yeah, I'm gonna double crochet 18 times, and then I will meet you on the 18th one so we can finish the other half of that half square filled in. So now I'm on the 18th double crochet of filling in the heart. And you'll notice that that 18th double crochet is filling in half of 1 mesh square. So to finish that mesh square, you're going to chain 1 and then skip that 1 chain from the previous row and go into the pillar or the grid and double crochet there. And then for the rest of the row, you're going to mirror what you did on the other side, which means you're going to make 5 mesh squares to finish that row. Now for row 11, it's going to be the exact same thing. So you're going to repeat the same steps. You're going to make 5 mesh squares and then fill in. I would refer to the pattern or just rewind the video. Now we're on to row 12. And for row 12, what we're going to do is fill in 5 squares in the middle. So start by making 6 mesh squares and then fill in by double crocheting 15 times. and then make another 6 squares. Now we are on row 13, which is going to be kind of similar, but we're going to leave 1 square open in the middle. So you're going to start by making 6 mesh squares, then you're going to fill in 2 squares by double crocheting 6 times. Here's 1 double crochet, 2, and when I say 6 double crochet, I mean it like added on to the last mesh square we finished. Just remember to keep looking at the previous rows to make sure everything's aligned in a grid format. And yeah, so we're gonna fill in 2 squares, and then we're gonna chain 2 right now. So that's 1, 2, and skip 2 and double crochet into the next one to make the little gap in our heart. This is a good time to check that that gap that you made is aligned with the first square that we filled in at the bottom of the heart. After that, we're going to continue filling in. We're going to fill in 2 squares again. So this time we're going to double crochet 7 times. And when you do that 7th one, it should align with our previous row. Be sure to be looking at the pattern as well because the instructions on there are a lot clearer, I feel like. So yeah, once you reach the end of the heart design, you're officially done with the heart. Congratulations. And now we're going to finish those 6 mesh squares on the other side, flip our work, and for the rest of this panel, all we're going to do is make mesh squares for 3 rows. So for row 14 through 16, you're going to continue making the mesh square rows. And then once you're done with that, I would pause the video here so you can do that. But once you're done with it, it should look like this, and we're going to move on to the straps. Alright, so for the first strap, you're going to stay attached to the main panel, and you're going to chain 2, and then you're going to skip 2 and double crochet. Now the reason we're doing that is to kind of make that sloped part of the sleeve so it starts to curve in. So yeah, after you do that, you're going to chain 2, skip 2 to make 3 mesh squares. So here's me doing the first mesh square. Then we're going to chain 2 and make another mesh square, and then chain 2 again and make our last mesh square. Then once we get those 3 mesh squares down, we're going to chain 1, skip 2, and then double crochet. This will make our other side of the strap start to slope a little bit. Once we do that, we're going to turn our work, chain 2, and then skip 1 and double crochet. For the rest of this row, which is row 2 of our strap, we're going to make 3 mesh squares, so chain 2, skip 2, double crochet until the end of the row. Now we're going to flip our work again, and for row 3, we're going to start by making 2 mesh squares, so chain 5, skip 2, double crochet, then chain 2, skip 2, double crochet. After we do that, we're going to start sloping our strap once again by chaining 1, skipping 2, and double crocheting. Immediately after that, we're going to chain 2, skip that 1, and then double crochet. And after all of that, for the rest of the row, we're going to finish those 2 mesh squares. So chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet. At this point, we have 4 rows done of our first strap. For rows 5 through 10, we're just going to make rows of 2 mesh squares. As a reminder, this is a good spot where you can adjust it to your body because maybe you want it to sit a little higher or a little lower. I would hold it up to your body as you do it. But yeah, so this means you might not do all 10 rows, and that's okay because everyone has different preferences and everyone is different, you know? So once you're done with that, you're gonna tie off, and now we're gonna work on the next strap, which will be the exact same thing. The only difference is that we will have to tie on our string to the other side instead of going straight into it. So this is the top corner of the other side of this front panel. We're just going to stick our hook into whatever corner piece seems like is right, and we're going to attach on string by just tying it on. After we attach it, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to start by chaining 2, skipping 2, double crochet. I'm just going to leave the instructions on the screen because you've done it once, so I'm hoping you can do it again. It'll be a lot easier this time because you already finished that first strap. So yeah, I'm just going to leave the instructions on the screen. I will be back when I'm done with it, and hopefully everything goes smoothly for you as well. Ta-da! Your work should look something like this. The only difference is that I added on this red detailing at the bottom, which is just slip stitches if you want to do that as well. I also made this red heart. I'll put a link in the description of how I made it because I followed another YouTuber's tutorial. I'm gonna stitch it on later because this is for an order and she wanted a red heart and I think it'd look really cute there. But yeah, now you have your straps and your heart design, and we're gonna move on to the back, which will be a breeze now that you've done the front because the back is just mesh stitch. There's no filling in. It's not that complicated, which is good. So if you recall, for the front we started by chaining 53 and then row 2 we single crocheted 52. We're going to do the same thing here. So I'm making my slip knot and then I'm going to chain 53, and here's how that's looking. Now as a reminder, for your single crochet row you should put your hook into the second chain from hook and then do your single crochets 52 times. Once you're done creating that base, we're going to make 16 rows of mesh squares, and each row will have 17 squares across. So as a reminder, you start by chaining 5, skipping 2, and then double crocheting. After you do that, you're going to chain 2, skip 2, double crochet all the way down until you have 17 squares across. I will leave the instructions on the screen because I think you guys have a grasp on it and I believe in you. So yeah, pause here. At this point, you should be done with your back panel, and now all that's left are the straps. For the straps, it's the same idea we did with the first one. So for the first strap, it's a continuation of where you left off. You're just going to chain 2, skip 2, double crochet. You're going to make 3 mesh squares by chaining 2, skipping 2, and then double crocheting. And then afterwards, you're going to chain 1 and double crochet in order to make the little curve in the strap, as I was talking about before. And you've made 2 straps so far, so I'm just going to leave the instructions on the screen and let you guys do it on your own. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and the next step after this will be assembling the top. To assemble the top, what you're going to do is lay your 2 panels on top of each other. Make sure you line up the straps on the top, and we're going to take a sewing needle, or you could just use your crochet hook. As a tip, I recommend using the ends that are already there to weave your 2 straps together, just so you have less to hide later. Now that you have both of your straps, we're going to work on the sides, which are just tied together. What you're going to do is cut 6 pieces of yarn about 6 inches long and tie them from the 3rd, 7th, and 12th row from the bottom up, and then you're done. There's a helpful diagram in the pattern if you need help with that, but thank you for following along and giving me so much support on my channel. I'm honestly very, very surprised about it and very grateful that you guys are here. So thank you, and feel free to tag me in your pictures because I love seeing what you guys make. That's everything for today. I hope you guys subscribe and I will see you next time. Bye!